So for this practice set, what we're doing is we're taking a look at multiplying and dividing mixed numbers. Let's take a look at a few practice problems on what we're doing here for today. Let's start with a problem such as this one. We're going to take 3 2/3 and we're going to multiply that times 1 1/2. Now, since we have two mixed numbers here, what we have to do is turn those into what's known as improper fractions. So we're going to multiply the whole number times the denominator. We're going to add the numerator to that, and then we keep the denominator here the same. So for 3 2/3, we're going to take 3 times 3, we get 9, plus 2, so that gives us 11. And we're going to keep the denominator 3. We're then going to take 1 1/2. We take 1 times 2 plus 1. That gives us 3. And we keep the denominator 2 the same. Now before we go ahead and start working on this one and multiplying it on out, one thing we can do is we can reduce diagonally here. So we can cross out the 3's, divide both of them by 3, and that gives us 1. So now if we go ahead and multiply, we have 11 times 1, which is 11. 1 times 2, that gives us 2. We then want to simplify that down, make that into a mixed number now for our final answer. Well, 2 goes into 11 5 times, and that gives us 10. Well, if we take 10 from 11, it gives us 1. Keep our denominator. Our answer is 5 1/2. We could look at a similar problem. Let's take same idea, but it's written out a little bit different. We're going to look at 1 1/2, and now it's squared. Well, since it's 1 1/2 squared, we're basically taking 1 1/2 times itself. So what we have now is 1 1/2 times 1 1/2. Again, since it's 1 1/2 times 1 1/2, we have two mixed numbers. So we're going to take those mixed numbers, we're going to make them into improper fractions. Once again, just like we did on the previous problems. Now, we already did 1 1/2. We had 3 halves, so we can just go ahead and reuse that. We're just doing the same thing again, whole number times the denominator plus the numerator to get the 3, and we keep the denominator the same, 3 halves. Now since it's 1 1/2 times 1 1/2, we know both of them are going to be 3 halves. We don't have anything that we can reduce here in this situation, so what we end up with now is 9/4 when we multiply. So 3 times 3 gives us 9, 2 times 2 gives us 4. Again, we want to go ahead and simplify that down. 4 goes into 9 twice. 4 times 2 is 8, so we subtract 8 from 9, leaves us with 1. 2 1/4. Okay, let's take a little bit of a look at what dividing looks like now. Let's say we have 3 2/3, and we want to divide that by 2. Well, the key thing to remember when we're dividing is anytime we're dividing, it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal of the number we're dividing by. So dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So if we want to take 3 2/3, if we multiply by 1/2 by the reciprocal here, we want to turn this into an improper fraction. So we're going to take 3 times 3, again that's 9, plus 2, we get 11/3. Nothing that we can reduce here this time. So we get 11/6. 6 goes into 11 once. We're left with 5/6. If we look at a similar problem, only now let's look at two mixed numbers. Let's take a look at 3 1/3. And let's divide that by 2 1/2. Well, 3 1/3 and 2 1/2, we need both of those to be improper fractions. We're going to multiply by the reciprocal again, but we want 3 1/3 to be an improper fraction. So we'll take 3 times 3 to get 9, plus 1, so that gives us 10 over 3. Change our division to multiplication. We want to take 2 times 2. 2 times 2 happens to be 4, plus 1 is 5. I'm going to write this up here because that gives us 5/2. But we want the reciprocal of that. So the reciprocal of 5/2, which is what 2 1/2 happens to be, the reciprocal of that would be 2/5. It's important to make sure we get that reciprocal correct, because in this case it's going to allow us to do some reduce. We look at what we have here. We can reduce the 10 and the 5 because we can divide both of those by 5. It gives us 2 and 1. Now we can go back and multiply. 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 1 is 3. 3 goes into 4 once. And if we subtract that 3 from the 4 that we took in there, that leaves us with 1. Keep our denominator, 1 1/3. So these are some examples of what it looks like when we multiply mixed numbers, and what it looks like when we divide mixed numbers by either whole numbers or divide them by mixed numbers. Good luck.